Would you like to introduce yourself to people that might watch this who might not
Yeah,
know who you are?
so I'm Alex Pope. I'm based in Southeast England, predominantly Kent, and I coach combined events, so heptathlons, decathlons, oxathlons, um, and I coach for a variety of different clubs in Victor, East Kent, Blackheath and Bromley Harriers, Dartford Harriers, and I do some occasional work with Momentum Sports at Kingston.
Uh-huh. So yeah, this is going to be mostly based on your work as a multi-events coach. And I'd say the first thing that I'm most interested in is how it contrasts and compares to training for like a specialist event in compared to training as a combined events. So what would you say are the main differences between combined events training and specialist events training?
Whoa, the main difference. Well, I think it depends largely on the age group of athletes you're dealing with. Um, so, well, it depends what event. I mean, the main event groups that you've got with UKA England athletics are sprints and hurdles, jumps, throws, and endurance. I'd probably argue that there probably needs to be a bit more to it than that, but let's just go with those. Combined events. Well, from my very, very limited experience, when you're dealing with young athletes, and when I say young athletes, I mean school age. Um, Before university and you're looking more at a development um, point of view. For me, the skill gap, the technical movements are the big issue because essentially there's 10 different events or seven different events if you're going for the large deck or HEP and probably spend up a lot of time just working on those technical movements as opposed to maybe an individual specialist might look at other things like physical preparation. For example, we wouldn't do anywhere near as much sprinting as a sprinter would do. We probably wouldn't do anywhere near as much plyometrics as a jumper would do. We wouldn't lift or do as much strength resistance work as a thrower might do. We definitely wouldn't do anywhere near as much endurance as an endurance athlete would do. There's far more to it than that, but yeah, I'd probably say at this stage with most of my athletes, it's more technical preparation. Um, and I'm just and for me, I think given how much work they're doing and all the different technical events and the wide variety of diet, I kind of feel like that's a natural strength base and resistance training for them anyway. So I just kind of keep it there.
Yeah. And I was going to ask if I mean, I presume you get people coming to you that are transitioning from specialist events to combined events.
No,
Do you not?
surprisingly not. I haven't had a new athlete in about 3 years. I'm largely under the radar. The main thing is that people love running. Park run is so popular. And if it's not running long distance, it's short distance, it's sprinting. Um, so, I mean, athletics is quite a niche sport as it is, and combined events is already a niche within a niche. Um, no, I actually get little to no athletes interested in combined events, which is a massive shame. Um, Interestingly, the combined events for English schools, so the regional rounds followed on by the national finals, is actually quite popular. It surprises me, people coming out of the woodwork where they're all coming from. They're all local, but I never see them. But then, there's lots of different tracks. That's understandable, I guess. But yeah, it's very interesting to see how the new age groups have unfurled. I think the seniors, so what would that be? Year 12s and year 13s definitely taken a hit. I haven't really paid much attention for the individual English schools, but for combined events, for the boys in the Southeast region, I think there was like five or six, and usually there's at least double figures. They've definitely taken a hit. Um, and yeah, it's just really interesting. But no, I don't. To go back to the original point, no, I don't have many. No, I don't.
Um,
In a
okay.
nutshell.
So diverting a bit, you mentioned how you've had a pretty like consistent group like of
Yeah.
athletes that you've had for a while. Do you think that gives you advantages when trying to coach them in just knowing a bit more about them and knowing what they need in certain areas?
Uh, yes, yes and no. It often makes me giggle when I'm swiping through Instagram and I see reels of like coaches with their backs turned and they have to guess like who was the jumper, who was the thrower, or whatever, and they can just kind of tell from the rhythm and the
Yeah.
like who it was. I think that's quite funny because I could probably do that the same with my athletes as well. So yeah, no, I get that. You get really familiar. You I get it. But then at the same time, I wouldn't say stale, but it gets to the point where I'll say things and it's almost like the nagging effect. Like if your parents say something, you'd be like, "Yes, mom," or "Yes, dad," and it just goes over your head. And
Mm.
I kind of feel like I have been saying the same thing for the last 3 or 4 years. Sometimes the penny drops. Uh, I always have that debate inside. Is that because I is it a my fault thing in the sense that I need to rephrase it in a different way or provide them some kind of training stimuli that makes them think differently to acknowledge that point? Or is it their fault because, well, not fault, I mean that's probably a bit of a strong word, but is the onus on them to make a conscious effort to understand what's being communicated? It's the where does where does it lie when it comes to passing on that kind of advice? But yeah, no, I think it has its advantages. My group, yeah, I'd say pretty consistent, although over the last 4 years, I think I started off and I coached mainly girls. I think I had one boy and about 10, 12 different girls. Um, and now it's completely the other way around. I think I only coach one or two girls, and now it's 8, 9 boys. Yeah, it doesn't feel consistent in the grand scheme of time, but yeah, there are athletes that I've coached for all the way, and yeah, it's a great process.
Um, so yeah, you mentioned like how that you've had to coach with different genders, and obviously different with different genders comes different multi events. Like you obviously have the heptathlon, and for women, and octathlon and decathlon for boys.
Yeah.
Would you ever like approach a competition or approach training differently depending on the gender because of potential different challenges that may come with the heptathlon and decathlon?
Well, yeah, that is the challenge. Now for me personally, I think women should do decathlon. I'm all for equality there. I think the carrot on the stick to help them adjust should be that instead of a 400, 1500, the last event of both days should be a 200, 800. Um, Women can hurdle, women can throw a discus. Sorry, there's traffic outside. Women can throw a discus, women can pole vault, they can clearly pole vault. Um, and to be honest, the argument people say of like, oh, it's always been a heptathlon, that's really lame. It's like, actually, no, it wasn't. Women used to do just a pentathlon. It then got changed to a heptathlon. I think the training wheels have been long enough. I think you need to move on to a cheeky deck there. In terms of how I'd approach training, well, at the moment, because I have two training groups, one's based at Norman Park and I coach them Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And I have another group down in Canterbury and I coach them Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. So I'm 6 days a week there. And then occasionally Sundays, I'm with Momentum Sports. So that's 7 days a week doing it. One strategy, if I'd just had one group, would be to have, um, a really bog simple strategy. Would be like I coach boys one day, girls the other, um, and alternate it. There's a couple of reasons why I wouldn't want to do that, even if I could. One, I think it's important that they work together. I think it's a better team dynamic. I think some groups want to train just boys and girls. I think that's fine. Um, but I think you lose a little bit of diversity, maybe. There's just something there's just ways of making it competitively fair, which I think many coaches miss a trick. And at the moment, I don't have the option to do alternate days anyway because there's not 14 days in a week, so that just can't
Yeah.
happen. So at the moment, the compromise is, let's say after school, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it would be 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We would do a boys only. I don't want to say boys only because that makes it sound like I'm excluding women, but a typically boys combined event specialism like discus or pole vault. Arguably, out of all the throws, discus is probably the most technical anyway, and pole vault's probably the most technical jump. And then from 6 o'clock onwards, it's hurdles, and then pretty much the heptathlon events and a sprint. And so if the girls want to come along, they can come along at 6. Um, if the girls want to come along earlier, they can do discus, they can do pole vault, they're more than welcome to. Or in the worst case, they can join up and do extra javelin, which I do think younger girls do need extra help with javelin. They can do javelin while the boys are doing discus. So that's all at one end, the throwing end, or they can do long jump while we're pole vaulting, because the place where we pole vault, the long jump bed's pretty much next to it. There's ways of getting around it. Um, I think there is a lot of overlap. Um, I think controversially, I think women for the heptathlon, it probably favors the tall, lankier jumper. I'd probably say the heptathletes. Um, Whereas I don't think raw speed, although it's helpful in the heptathlon, it's not quite the same for decathlon. Uh, you can score massive points in the 800, and that's just not true for the men in the 1500. Well, you can, but I feel like the trade-off to run a sub 4 minute 1500, you completely shot the other 9 events. It's just not worth it. Whereas I feel, if you get a tall 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot athlete of a woman and her lactic system is really well developed, so she can run 202, 205 in the 800. Happy days. You see that all the time. You see that with Anna Hall. Um, you see that with quite a lot of athletes that I think like, okay, interesting. But yeah, I think to be fair, what's the world record for the 800 women? 153 something. I think
Yeah.
Keely Hodgkinson was
153
going for the
too.
other
Yeah.
day. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like to be within 10, 8, 9, 10 seconds of the world record. Some of these combined eventers are running like 203, 202. You are not going to see a decathlete running within 10 seconds of the 1500-meter world
No.
record. It's just not, or even like the same percentage, like 14 seconds. There's no realistic decathlete running 401, 4 minutes flat.
Yeah.
Or you do see them, but they're probably absolutely ropey and everything else. You're not going to see a serious 8,200 point decathlete doing sub 4 minutes in a decathlon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not a thing. So yeah, differences at the moment. I've just had to do it on a timing um, thing. So the girls' sessions would start 6 till 8, but they're more than welcome to join from 5 to 6 onwards. But it would primarily be like a top up, so javelin or maybe a high scoring event like long jump or high jump, really.
Yeah. Um, you've mentioned obviously you have those sessions for decathlon specialists and you have the discus in that. Um, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming you'd have athletes like Izzy Ryder, who is a fantastic discus thrower, go to those. Um,
Uh, yeah. So uh, Izzy Ryder, fantastic athlete. Um, I don't think I've coached Izzy for about a year now. Um, Great athlete, parents really nice people, great athletes themselves. I've always got time for Izzy. I'll support her at competitions and stuff. Um, but yeah, my power of 10 looks like I coach quite a lot of people. I don't so much anymore. I think what was happening is about a year and a half ago, I had a lot of young athletes come along and say, "Yeah, we want to do combined events, or we've got English schools coming up. Can we have a bit of practice for it?" It's like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." And on the positives, I like to see it as I didn't, hopefully I demystified some things, and some of the things I did wasn't rocket science, and they could go away and do it themselves. I think other things were logistical problems. So, for example, Dartford Harriers. Their club training nights are Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, if I'm correct. Um, and then that clashes with what I do at Norman Park in Bromley. So you've got the difficult choice
Yeah,
of, do you go and see a coach that's half hour, 40 minutes up the road into London, pay the ULEZ, all that stuff, and miss out on a club night? Uh, or the other alternative is Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and you have to drive for an hour down the A2 to get down to Canterbury. And so it was a few sessions, more than happy to help. But I think logistically long term, after a year or so, it's like, yeah, I know what Alex is going to say. It's fine. I'm doing the right kind of things. And to be honest, her mum and dad are doing a great job with discus. There's not a lot I can add. They've got a great support base with those two, and then they often tap up. John Hillier is there if they need more support. She's just doing what she's doing, and it's fantastic, really.
yeah. Apologies for that mix-up.
No, it's fine.
But I think what I was going to plan on asking is that, well, at least your power of 10 suggests that you
Yeah,
have such a wide range of athletes and what they specialize in.
I
And
do.
would you ever coach them slightly differently because of that, or would you treat every athlete as would you like
Well,
play into
yeah, no,
someone's strengths or weaknesses when you're coaching them, or would you just train every athlete
yeah,
equally?
I think, yeah, contentious because I'm a teacher and I get it. Teachers aren't the most popular, but there's this idea in teaching pedagogy where you're talking about differentiation. And that's something different than if you're studying A-level maths or calculus. Differentiation in the context of teaching or coaching is essentially saying that you appreciate the differences between each of the different athletes, and they may need different training stimuli, they may need to be working differently, doing different times, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, the question becomes, okay, combined events is all fun and games, but let's suppose an athlete decides, I kind of like this one event or maybe one or two events. Do I really need to be doing all these others? I really hate doing shot put. I want to be a jumper. I don't like pole vault, or I love pole vault. I don't really want to be throwing a javelin. And so my argument has been, and this is the same, and again, this is quite contentious because many coaches don't agree with it and many do. Um, the coaching material, the stuff that you learn about when you become a coach, that UK provide, talks about the athlete development pathway, and it starts talking about like fundamentals, um, foundations, multi-event, event group, specialist, elite, that kind of like pyramid of how you build up. And that depends on lots of factors, experience, age, chronological age, training age. Um, and so at what point do you make the decision to specialize in combined events? Um, so for it, uh, as a final segue, before I get back to my point, to me, Dina Asher-Smith is a multi-event athlete. She does the 60, she does the 100, she does the 200, and she has run 300s and 400s. To me, that's multi-event. Like, that's quite impressive. Like, usually people might specialize in one or two of them that are fairly close. For example, a 60 and 100, they wouldn't necessarily go 60 and 400. That's probably a bit of a weird pairing of specialisms. But to me, Dina Asher-Smith is a multi-event athlete because she can do all of that range. Some might argue that's an event group. So the sprints, so a multi-eventer, I'd probably argue Izzy Rider is because she can throw a mean discus and she can pole vault and she can do all the other events as well. She does multi-events and she does what I'm about to talk about, combined events. So the combined events to me, the decathlon, the heptathlon, it's the specific combination of events done in specific order. Um, and if you're a maths nerd, you know that combinations are where the order doesn't matter and it's actually permutations. But anyway, whatever. Um, and so going back to how would I decide? Um, I would very gently say I believe you should be doing multi sports up until about 12, 13 years old, maybe longer if you want to. There's no ceiling, but in an ideal world, um, multi-sports up to about 11, 12, multi-events up until about 16, 18, and then start specializing first year under 20. But if you feel you have the technical ability, the coordination, all the other stuff, I mean, what's to me, what's the point of all the different multi-sports? Well, to get movement skills. Why is that important? Because you don't want to be a 22-year-old and your coach says, right, that was really good, but can you do and then give some technical cue? And then because this athlete is so uncoordinated because they've only ever done one thing in their life, they're like, and they can't like auto adjust. And all of a sudden, you're at the top level and you just need to do this one thing and it's just not happening. And so having a multi-sport background does make you more hand-eye coordinated for sure. Multi-event, well, I think that's more of like a physical conditioning overall around keeping fit, still specific movement patterns, using the right energy systems, but you're kind of giving yourself a long-term MOT in terms of fitness, physical health, that kind of thing. A classic example um, is where I had a young athlete called Alessia Scala. Um, so she was top year under 13, really shy. I think she was really into high jump. She thinks she jumped like 1 meter 20, something like that, 120, 130, which is pretty good for an under 13 girl. And, she really loved jumping. It was really obvious. And she'd had a background in gymnastics, tumbling, lots of different stuff. She was clearly very mobile, very energetic, very coordinated. Um, and the original deal was I said to her mum, like, I think she should do combined events just for a little bit. Doesn't necessarily have to compete, but I feel like it's just good for her overall movement. Um, but yeah, if she wants to specialize under 17, maybe that's absolutely fine. Um, and then yeah, the very next year she jumped 170 and then had the conversation again. Her mum was like, she really loves high jump. She really doesn't want to do shot put, javelin, that kind of stuff. She really doesn't like it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. If she wants to join a high jump specialist group, she doesn't want to keep doing this. I think it's good. My personal opinion is I think it's good for overall development. And what would happen is that in my sessions, say we're going to do a shot put session for like 20 minutes or so, the combined eventers would do shot put from a purely technical point of view, like working on the movement skills for a glide, standing throws, lots of that kind of stuff. From a non-specialist point of view, like a high jumper, I just want them doing backwards overheads. I just want them like nothing technical at all. Just treat it as almost like a medicine ball session. Like I don't really care about the technique. I just want you being explosive. Like there's little to no technique. Just do it. Um, and then yeah, and then she went off. I recommended her to John Bancroft, a very good coach in the Kent area, and now she's been selected for the European Under-18s, and she went to the Loughborough International, and that was a great move. And wish her all the success in the world. She's absolutely smashing it. And another example of where that's coming to fruition is I coach another young lad. I say coach, well I do, but I'm not his main coach. A guy called Jacob Clark Jones. He was the indoor 60-meter hurdle champion for under 15 boys. He's been selected for English schools. He was the national indoor under 15 champion. And his main coach is a guy called Brian Hopkins, who he goes to see up at Lee Valley. But Jacob lives near Canterbury, so Lee Valley is like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's not always as easy to get to. But I like Brian. And the days he can't get to Lee Valley, or it's there's things going on, like his parents can't make it, whatever. He'll come down to Canterbury and he'll join in with our sessions. So the hurdle session, he'll get on it, do block starts, all the hurdles and that stuff. But if we do a bit of long jump, he's doing standing long jump, standing triple jump. He's not doing long jump technical stuff. If we're doing shot put, he's doing overheads. If it's javelin, then I'll just get him to do some plyometrics or medicine ball work to the side. I think just you can make allowances as long as they're doing something that's explosive. For me, from a I kind of see two camps. There's like the endurance athletes, and then there's the explosive athletes. And I think t to me, yeah, there's different body types in terms of like how tall you are, limb length, all that stuff, and levers and mechanics and stuff. But an explosive sprint athlete, one that's primarily using the alactic energy system, using all that ATP PC, just get them explosive. Like it's
Yeah,
not, it's yeah, it's pretty simple like that. And he's enjoying it. He's going really well. He's running faster all the time. And he's still got another year at under 16s, and he's already running like 13.2, 13.3 for the one hurdles. So hopefully he'll be low 12s, maybe sub 12. Who knows? He's going for it um, next year. But yeah, in terms of coaching a specialist, I say specialist, combined event as a specialist, an individual athlete versus combined eventer. Yeah, you use the concept of differentiation that teachers are supposed to use all the time. I know not all teachers are created equally, but you look at an athlete and go, okay, they need this specific stimuli or a specific part of their training diet. How do I tailor it for them? And it's very simple. For the field events, I would take out all of the technical complexity and I just want them doing overheads or plyometrics or some kind of throwing or jumping. It doesn't have to be specifically that great. If anything, the more general it is, the better it is, just for their general conditioning, to be perfectly honest with you.
yeah.
So yeah, that's how I get around that.
Um, so obviously you mentioned Alessia Scola and how she's going on to European champions. I believe, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I have been
Yep.
so far. You have other athletes going to European champions in like Ollie Downs,
I do.
in
Yep.
multi events. How would you prep someone? I mean, I'll start off with how would you prep someone for major events, but how would you prep someone as well? And if so, how would it be different for an international competition like you will be doing in a few weeks' time?
Um, well, it, yeah, there's so many factors. Um, so for example, where it is, what time of the year it is, what the competition is, where the athlete is in terms of their physical performance, their mental preparation. There's a whole host of things that I feel like if you had a rigid policy, you'd probably have like a fat document you'd possibly have to be referring to all the time. Um, if I take Ollie Downs as an example, um, he has got a few. I don't want to say niggles because that's wrong, but there are certain things that will trigger um, upon doing certain things. Like you might get a tight glute, uh, tight something else. I'm constantly aware of what sets what off, what he needs in terms of uh, he may need more work on pole vault. So I'm ringing up local facilities that have a pole vault bed to book them out. Um, to be honest, mentally is where a lot of the damage can be avoided and a lot of uh, the wins can be made. If an athlete is just not mentally up for it, they can be an absolute physical specimen. It's just not going to happen. So an example of that would be if an athlete's feeling confident, um, they can get confidence from lots of different things. For example, if they've been consistently performing well in training and then that's been transferring over to consistency in a competition, it could be that they've made a technical breakthrough in something. And so, for example, they might have been consistently throwing 12 meters in the shot put, and then one thing changed, and now they're consistently throwing over 15. It just depends. For Ollie specifically, um, he's in a good place now. He's worked very hard, and the 7,088 points at Fuerteventura should have been a lot higher, mainly because of discus. He was about nearly 10 meters down. It's another 200 points. I think there's more to go in a couple of the other events, like the long jump and 400. He's been working on those. I think it's a matter of time before he breaks seven there. Um, yeah, it's. I think there's lots of little tweaks that will just naturally happen, as opposed to trying to force it. And I think he knows that. And that's the main thing. When an athlete believes in themselves, uh, they've got a whole back catalogue of consistency because that's part of training. You're preparing for a competition anyway. I'm probably quite rare in the sense that um, a lot of coaches will go through periodization, tapering, all this kind of stuff. I don't see it like that. I kind of see it as there's blocks that we have to get to. Like, for example, the Europeans was the goal, and we've been thinking about the Europeans since he broke the British record for under 15 octathlon. And it's like, okay, we're going to navigate each bit at a time. If we go off course, that's fine. We'll just navigate back. Um, I feel it's impossible to just map out an entire year.
Yeah.
Uh, I think you can have a rough idea how the year's going to go, and then there's logistics of, well, make sure certain things are booked, and make sure dates don't clash. But it boggles me a little bit when I see almost like lesson plans where you've got for a teacher you kind of have to, but I don't think you do. I think like when you get a bit more experience, you've done lesson plans so many times, you can just regurgitate them out and say, well, this is what would happen. Um, and I'm a great believer in that there's a difference between having a plan and being prepared.
Mm.
I think if you've got a plan, that's part of your preparation, but a plan isn't necessarily the preparation. And if you're prepared, you don't need a plan. You know what you're doing. You're already prepared. Um, and I feel like Ollie is prepared. There is no plan, but Ollie is prepared. He's ready for it. Um, so yeah.